The assessment finds that nuclear enrichment could resume in the next several months if Iran wants it to. This is according to officials familiar with this report. They also tell NBC News if this evaluation continues to be true and Iran doesn't agree to restart negotiations with the Trump administration on a nuclear deal, both the American and Israeli governments could conduct additional strikes.
And you should probably expect the additional strikes to happen sometime in the future, because a recent US intel assessment of the damage done to Iran's nuclear sites alleges that only one of the sites, the Fordo site, was mostly destroyed, while the other two sites are just not destroyed, they're damaged, but damaged to a point where maybe in the next several months, Iran would be able to continue enriching uranium. Now, US officials believe the attack on Fordo, which has long been viewed as a critical component of Iran's nuclear ambitions, was successful in setting back Iranian enrichment capabilities at that site by as much as 2 years. And that's according to two of the current officials in the Trump administration who spoke to NBC News on the condition of anonymity. And I do want to just quickly emphasize that. Apparently 5 current and former US officials familiar with this assessment spoke to NBC News, obviously on condition of anonymity. It's again very reminiscent of like New York Times reporting in the lead up to the Iraq war, where the intel community was essentially, feeding stories to the Times and they were just regurgitating it. So obviously proceed with caution when it comes to these types of reports, but nonetheless, previously experts had argued that, the only way to really assess accurately how much damage was done to these nuclear sites would be to have inspectors see the sites on the ground, examine the sites and see how much damage was really caused. And Iran is no longer allowing international inspectors into the country as a result of Trump's decision to pretend like he was going to negotiate a new nuclear deal with Iran, and then he immediately bombed 3 nuclear sites. Even more concerning is that according to a current US official and 2 former US officials who spoke to NBC, US Central Command had developed a much more comprehensive plan to strike Iran that would have involved hitting 3 additional sites in an operation that would have stretched for several weeks instead of a single night. Under the plan, the United States would have hit 6 sites repeatedly to essentially, in their minds, completely end this nuclear program in Iran. Now, Iran's air defense and ballistic missiles capabilities would also be struck. But what's really interesting is this intel assessment notes that Iran's ballistic missile capabilities and air defense has been decimated as a result of the 12-day war. So there's like conflicting intel coming out, which I find fascinating. And by the way, this plan by US Central Command in hitting 6 sites as opposed to 3 would have resulted in a high number of Iranian casualties. But luckily, President Donald Trump was briefed on that plan, but it was rejected because it was at odds with his foreign policy instincts to extract the United States from conflicts abroad, not dig deeper into them, as well as the possibility of a high number of casualties on both sides, one of the current officials and one of the former officials said. Now, one of the sources with knowledge of the plan also told NBC News, quote, "We were willing to go all the way in our options, but the president did not want to." Now, the Trump administration, by the way, still insists that Iran's nuclear program has been obliterated. Okay, so in a statement, Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Purnell said this in regard to the latest assessment and the latest reporting. "The credibility of the fake news media is similar to that of the current state of the Iranian nuclear facilities, destroyed in the dirt, and will take years to recover. President Trump was clear, and the American people understand. Iran's nuclear facilities in Fordo, Isfahan, and Natanz were completely and totally obliterated. There is no doubt about that." And look, I just want to say, to me, those kinds of statements coming out of the Trump administration gives me a sliver of hope that we might be able to avoid further war with Iran. But I've had that hope with Trump before, and he has been a disappointment. So I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see. And for those hoping to avoid war with Iran, you shouldn't rest easy just yet. There have been discussions within both the American and Israeli governments about whether additional strikes on the two less damaged facilities could be necessary if Iran does not agree to restart negotiations with the Trump administration on a nuclear deal, or if there are signs Iran is trying to rebuild at those locations. And I just look, there's again a lot of pressure for the administration to go to war with Iran on behalf of Israel. We know that it's not really about the nuclear sites for Israel. They want regime change in Iran and they haven't gotten it yet. Trump has reneged on other promises as it pertains to Israel. So I don't know, we're gonna have to wait and see, but it makes my stomach hurt. I feel like we're gonna probably bomb Iran again, and I think it would be a mistake.
Yeah, so when analyzing this, you have to look at two things. One, is this reporting true? Two, what is the agenda of the sources? That's actually super important. There's a lot of tells in here that I'm gonna tell you about that gives you a sense of why the sources are telling NBC News this. And there's an interesting part about Biden in here as well. So first off, is it true? Well, there's no way of knowing, guys. Within the intelligence communities, there'll be reports that say, hey, we did a lot of damage. There'll be some reports saying we didn't do enough damage because they're getting information from different sources. So you could then cherry pick. So if you don't want to go to war, you can say, hey, we got a source saying we totally obliterated the place, right? And then you can say, but if you want to go to war, you can find some people and then leak it to the press, say, oh, it turns out we didn't get everything. Now, does that mean we definitely didn't get everything? I don't know. Does it mean we did get everything and I'm sure of it? No, I don't know. There's no way, I'm not down in those tunnels. How would I know, right? And do I trust these sources? Absolutely not. So for reasons that I'm gonna explain in a second. But so to the point that Anna made about the real agenda here, look, if it was true that Israel was actually concerned about their nuclear program, then why have they been saying since Netanyahu himself been saying since 1995 that they're about to get nukes any second now? Well, that's been a lie for decade after decade after decade, 30 years of that lie, right? And there's more of that lie in this story, yet somehow they never got anywhere near it, right? So that's not what it's about. There's two things that Israel cares about. One is making sure that no one in the Middle East can oppose them. So that's why they've now obliterated, and look, people will say, well, of course they're supposed to obliterate Hezbollah and Hamas, and those folks fire rockets into Israel, etc. Now, going into Lebanon is sovereign country, but Israel doesn't care about sovereignty at all. Israel doesn't follow international law. So they're like, I don't care, I'm just gonna destroy Hezbollah. And a lot of people will cheer about that. It's still destabilizing, etc. But they destroyed Hamas, they've destroyed them. They destroyed Assad's regime. Now they're bombing Syria whenever they want, including yesterday, and their capital was bombed. Why? I mean, that's a sovereign country. What do you bomb? That's an act of war. Israel's like, no, we own the Middle East. We can bomb any of your capitals at any times. And how do I know that it's that extreme? Well, after the bunker buster bombs, Netanyahu came out and said, yeah, we might have destroyed their nuclear facilities because Trump was saying we obliterated it, right? He said, but they still have ballistic missiles and we have to hit all their ballistic missiles. But everybody has ballistic missiles. So no one is allowed to have any weapons to defend their country other than the US and Israel. What kind of standard is this? That's insane. Is France allowed to have missiles? Is any country allowed to have missiles other than Israel and the US? If that's the standard, we're all gonna attack each other nonstop. There's gonna be nonstop invasions because everybody's got ballistic missiles. All right, so that's part one of what they want. The part two is regime change because they want a regime like Jordan and Egypt that are under control. Again, there's an upside to that because at least they have peace deals and they're not killing one another, right? But those governments do not oppose Egypt. You can't say at all because they're not taking in the Palestinians. So that's one way that they're opposing Egypt. But overall, they're very good allies. They generally overwhelmingly agree with Israel, and you can tell because the US continues to fund Jordan and Egypt, right? So what Israel wants is all those regimes that are opposed to them neutered. Now, if you're a supporter of Israel, you can say, yeah, of course I want all of my opponents neutered. But guys, in order to do that, they keep attacking one country after another, and you can't do that. You can't say, I'm slightly worried that at a later date, you might or might not attack me, so I attacked you first, and I wiped you out, and then by the way, now I'm gonna come back and bomb you again, and again, and again, and I have the right to pick your government for you. No, you don't. No, you don't. And Israel's been doing that in the Middle East now, along with the US, for a long time. So now my skepticism about this. At the end of the article, NBC says, under the deal, Iran was a year away from obtaining enough fissile material for a nuclear bomb, referring to Obama's deal. That's not true at all, at all. Under the Obama deal, they shipped their uranium abroad. They shipped their uranium abroad, none of it was weaponized. They were about to have enough material for a bomb? That's just a flat out lie. So the source tells honestly, this is terrible reporting, terrible.
Yeah.
You don't question the source? You didn't look up whether they really had fissile material? Or are you trying to lie to your audience on purpose? Okay, and then they said, before the June airstrikes, the Iranian regime, had enough fissile material for about 9 to 10 bombs. Now they had 9 to 10 nukes. Come on, they didn't have a single nuke. They didn't have first of all, they don't even have the delivery mechanism. They didn't have the weapon that they could put the uranium on, and developing that weapon would take, according to experts, 1 to 2 extra years on top. Second of all, they had enriched uranium to 60%. Now we're worried about that because that's past where you use it for energy purposes. But we broke the deal. They didn't break the deal. Trump broke the deal that Obama had, which was a great deal, and said, okay, yeah, that's it, we're not living up to our end. So Iran said, okay, then we're not living up to our end, and we're gonna enrich uranium. And again, NBC frames that as Iran then flouted the rules. No, there were no rules. We broke the rules, so then they could do whatever they want because we didn't have a peace deal anymore. So no, this is, by the end, you realize the article is all about the war drums. I mean, this is a textbook article out of 2002 as mainstream media helped the administration start a war in the Middle East.
I have so much I want to say. So first of all, let me just note, in regard to Trump's thinking on foreign policy in general, he falls for tricks and games. I'll give you an example. So recently he turned on Russia and Putin specifically. Okay, and also announced that we're going to provide more military support to Ukraine, which did upset his base further. I mean, they're already upset with him over the broken promises on the Epstein files, but now they're upset because Trump has basically expressed his commitment to helping Ukraine defend itself with more military weaponry. Now, regardless of what you think about that situation, what I found interesting about Trump's comments is he's like, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially he said, I mean, I don't understand what Putin's problem is. We talk on the phone and we have pleasant conversations. Who cares? Who cares that you're having pleasant conversations? Is that all it takes? A pleasant conversation for you to trust someone who invaded a sovereign country? Are you that gullible? That's all it takes, a friendly conversation. Anyway, so his thinking on foreign policy is just like, he's out to lunch. Let's just put it that way. The other thing is, Israel loves regime change wars and loves having the United States fight these regime change wars on their behalf. But what happens in these regime change wars, Cenk? What happens if there is a regime change in Iran and the Ayatollah and the current regime is toppled? What's the plan? Because Israel also wanted regime change in Syria, and they didn't get apparently the replacement that they desired. Because guess what? Regime change is messy, especially when you go in with really no plan in mind. So now you have ministers in Israel talking about how we need another regime change in Syria. Come on, come on. So look, I don't think the Israeli government gives a damn about the Druze, okay? Their bombing campaign in Syria has nothing to do with protecting the Druze. And the minister who came out and vocalized his desire for regime change in Syria gave the whole game away. And we need to stop getting involved in these dumb wars which further destabilized the Middle East. And hey, UK, all of you idiot politicians in the UK who complain about migrant crises and how it impacts your country. Why do you think these migrant crises exist to begin with? You go in, you destabilize Muslim majority countries, you make it uninhabitable to live in their country, okay? And what do you think is gonna happen? You're going to have a massive influx of refugees trying to find safe haven in neighboring countries or in Western countries. So the UK goes along with what the United States does. Maybe it's about time you stop doing that. If you're worried about, too many Muslims invading your country. I'm sick of it. It's so dumb. It's like, oh, let me go around and punch people in the face and then cry when there are consequences for it.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. Let me get to the Biden part. Apparently, an all-in plan was created under Biden. And so that was going to last a couple of weeks at least 6 bombing runs to further obliterate Iran, further attack and invade Iran. Trump, to his credit, chose not to do that. I mean, so it's maybe damning with faint praise because he bombed them anyway. He did a bunker buster, but yes, it could have been worse. So that's fair. But if they go back to bombing, then it doesn't matter at all. They're going to the all-in plan anyway. And it is interesting. Now, to be fair to Biden, he didn't bomb Iran. And that's actions matter more than anything else. But they had a plan to bomb Iran. and extensively. So no matter if it was a Democrat or a Republican, the military had a plan to start a war with Iran. And eventually we did. And here we are in the middle of it. So I guess last thing is, yeah, they're prediction time, analysis time. They're gonna go back and bomb Iran. They're never gonna have, it's never gonna be enough. Like Netanyahu is so greedy for power, nothing satiates him, right? If there's a single stone left in Iran, he's gonna be like, that's a weapon. They throw stones at us, terrorists, bomb them, bomb Syria, bomb Lebanon, bomb Gaza, bomb West Bank, wipe out 75% of Gaza. But what? Oh, I'm such an innocent victim. Even now, the former prime minister, Ehud Olmert, says they're taking 2 million Palestinians and bring them to a concentration camp in southern Gaza. I didn't say that. A former Israeli prime minister said that. So, okay, now, but we're gonna fund more. We're gonna give more money for war. We're gonna help them with more war. So my prediction is, nope, we're going back in. They're not satisfied. And they won't be satisfied until they have a friendly regime who says, well, of course, we should have no weapons at all. We should not be able to defend ourselves. And only Israel should have weapons. Only Israel should have might. And we'll take our marching orders from beloved Israel. Until they get that from Iran, they're gonna go bomb and bomb and bomb and bomb. It's never gonna stop.
Yeah,
again, we'll see if I'm right or wrong, right? For all the people, look, when we said about Gaza, they're going to take land. People are like, outrageous, outrageous. Now they have 75% of Gaza, and they've announced that they're never going to. They voted to never allow a Palestinian state. So what are we talking about here? Oh, Israel has a right to exist. Of course it does. Do the Palestinians have a right to exist? Israel has a right to defend itself. Does Iran have a right to defend itself? Nope. Muslims never have a right to defend themselves. They don't have a right to countries. They don't have a right to sovereignty. They don't have a right to peace. They don't have any rights at all. Only Israel and America have rights. And if you disagree, we'll bomb you, we'll kill your civilians, and call you terrorists.
I think you're being generous by saying America has rights, considering we don't even have the rights to see the documents that incriminate people in positions of power due to their relationships with Jeffrey Epstein. We don't have the right to see that, according to the former FBI director, Andrew McCabe. That's the country we live in.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.